Hola mi gente, Tomb Raider 582 de regreso en el Multiverse. Y esto es una colectiva de arte. Como notarán, en el primer piso, la gran mayoría de las galerías están con candado, lo que significa que no se puede entrar. Lo más seguro o los creadores de la galería no quieren visitas ni que nadie tome videos o fotos. O quizás tengan otra razón, pero las que están abiertas, it's fair game. Um, and I think it's a very nice gesture to, take photos or videos to cherish that gallery before the shutdown. So let's commence with this one, the Microcosmic Art Collaborative, because I like all that stuff. Yeah. I like trippy stuff. Microcosmic Realms, a multiverse collection. Okay, so it's different galleries. Digger. In raindrops, emotions. Let's try. Honey Bear Catherine. Microscopic emotions. Let's try them. I want to showcase everybody, as many artists as I can. Oh, beautiful blue eyes. Oh, I wish I had been born with blue or green eyes. I love them. Let's see. Hmm. It's the art of seeing and appreciating the smallest details of human emotion. Yeah. What's that? Oh, Catherine Carter, AI artist. Okay. Hmm. Let's go back. Uh, okay. It's this one, I think. Yes. The World Tree. Uh, there was another gallery I wanted to visit. Oh, AI agents. Hold on. Yeah, that clip. How it was from Simon. Summon them with paperclip. Okay. Mount Olympus. Mythical Beasts. I've checked out Mythical Beasts, but let's take one final look. This was interesting for those that enjoy mythology. Oh, okay.
Dragons are a mainstay of British heraldry, and none more so than the red dragon depicted on the national flag of Wales. Although an integral part of the United Kingdom, Wales is not represented on the national flag. Instead, Wales has its own battle standard, consisting of a red dragon standing with 1 foot raised, on a green and white background. This painting in honor of the birth of Wales shows a female nude emerging from the jaws of a red dragon, reminiscent of Botticelli's Birth of Venus but with a Celtic twist.
Mm.
There have been many famous dragons throughout history, hailing from all 4 corners of the earth. This particular artwork tells the fable involving a Greek dragon, namely Jason and the Golden Fleece. The dragon has been put to sleep by Medea's potion, so Jason can steal the Golden Fleece. Jason stands over the dragon, while Medea, a sorceress and his betrothed, stands to the left.
Mhm.
In the background are the Argonauts' ships, which are being prepared for the return voyage to Greece. The Colchian dragon was a giant watchful serpent, which guarded the Golden Fleece in the sacred grove of Ares in Colchis. This superb painting illustrates the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, wherein Rosa depicts the Greco-Roman mythical hero, as he uses some magic herbs received from the sorceress, Medea. He thus manages to charm the dragon and steal the Golden Fleece, which was alleged to make the bearer immortal. Japanese dragons are diverse legendary creatures in Japanese mythology and folklore, with myths amalgamating native legends with imported stories about dragons from China, Korea and India. The style of the Japanese dragon was heavily influenced by its Chinese counterpart, and most are water deities associated with rainfall and bodies of water, typically depicted as large, wingless, serpentine creatures with clawed feet.
Mm.
Although dragons may be iconic mythical creatures, a common misconception is that all dragons are the same throughout Asia. However, each country has its own kind of dragons. In both Chinese and Japanese mythology, the dragon is closely associated with the watery realm, and an artwork is often surrounded by water or clouds. Japanese dragons are said to rule over the seas, and they usually have only 3 claws, unlike their 5-clawed Chinese counterparts.
Mm.
In a stampede of weapon-wielding sea creatures, Kuniyoshi captures the popular story of Princess Tamatori and the Sacred Jewel. The Tang Emperor presented a sacred jewel as a gift to his father-in-law, but a powerful storm wrecked the ship that was delivering the offering to Japan, and the jewel sank to the Dragon Palace in the depths below. In the hope of retrieving the lost jewel, the young Princess Tamatori dives into the sea to retrieve it. As the Dragon King's court chases the diver, she cuts open her breast to hide the jewel. Though she succeeds, she dies from her wounds when she returns to shore. Kuniyoshi portrays the story of Princess Tamatori, with strength and determination, jewel in hand as she nears the far left edge of the print. As she glances behind her, knife raised, all manner of sea creatures pursue her, their king furiously stirring the sea overhead.
Mm.
Dragons often star in tales of heroes, bravery and rip-roaring deeds. And although commonly used by artists as an excuse to paint high drama and dynamic design, Edward Burne-Jones here presents the viewer with something akin to a dream.
Mm.
The knight is hardy, having dispatching his admittedly undernourished enemy with assurance. Yet this Saint George is a creature of the mind, and the elegance of the poses encourage reverie, not alarm. It depicts an armored Saint George slaying a reptilian-looking dragon, while a female figure wearing a flowing white gown and a wreath of flowers clasps her hands and watches tentatively from the sidelines.
Mm. Now let's go up. Mm-hmm.
A vampire is a creature from folklore that lives by feeding on the blood of the living. In European myth, vampires are undead creatures that often visited loved ones, and caused mischief or deaths in the neighborhoods they had inhabited while they were alive. Vampires wore shrouds and were often described as bloated and of ruddy or dark countenance, markedly different from today's gaunt pale vampire, which dates from the early 19th century. This illustration depicts townsfolk burning the exhumed skeleton of an alleged vampire.
Mm.
Most people associate vampires with Count Dracula, the legendary blood-sucking subject of Bram Stoker's epic novel Dracula, published in 1897. It is thought Stoker named his protagonist after Prince Vlad Dracula, who was born in Transylvania and
Mhm.
ruled part of Romania, off and on for about 8 years. During his rule he was known for a number of atrocities, and a penchant for impaling his enemies on stakes in the ground, which earned him the name Vlad the Impaler. There are many traits associated with vampires. Some may have the ability to morph into a bat or a wolf, they have super strength, and often have a hypnotic sensual effect on their victims. They can't see their image in a mirror, and they cast no shadows. They can be killed by driving a stake through the heart, or repelled by garlic, and are also mortally harmed by direct sunlight. They kill their victims by biting, usually on the neck, and drinking their blood. This artwork, painted in 1897, depicts a vampiric woman leaning over an unconscious man, who is either dead or dying, lying supine on his bed. Upon his uncovered breast is the bite mark of the monster's fatal caress, and she, in the shape of a demon-like woman, sits at his side, lips recently parted from their horrid work. This painting depicts a neck-biting fight and is therefore often associated with vampires. It was inspired by a short scene from the Inferno, set in the eighth circle of hell, where Dante and Virgil watch a fight between two damned souls, called Capocchio and Schicchi. The horror of the action is forceful. We see one combatant savagely biting the neck of the other, while brutally kneeing his back. Schicchi throws himself at Capocchio with a strange fury, and the artist depicts the struggle magnificently, through muscles, nerves, tendons and teeth. There is bitterness and strength in this canvas, exaggerating the muscle structure to the point of distorting it, exaggerating the poses, contrasting color and shadows, depicting monstrous figures and groups of damned souls.
Mm.
The werewolf is a mythological animal and the subject of many stories throughout the world. They are people who transform into vicious, powerful wolves every month at full moon. It's unclear exactly when and where the werewolf legend originated. Some believe it made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh, when Gilgamesh jilted a potential lover because she had turned her previous mate into a wolf. Werewolves also feature in early Nordic folklore, where the saga of the Volsungs tells the story of a father and son who discovered wolf pelts that had the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. Jupiter and Lycaon was painted between 1636 and 1638 by Jan Cassiers, and the painting depicts a tale from Greek mythology where Zeus meets with King Lycaon of Pelagia. Lycaon wanted to test the divinity of Zeus, and so served up his own son as part of a banquet. An
Mm.
outraged Zeus transformed Lycaon into a wolf, along with Lycaon's other sons, and some say that Lycaon was therefore the first werewolf.
Wow, what a story. My goodness. Let's see. Oh, Medusa. Oh, yeah. Oof.
Medusa was one of 3 sisters known as the Gorgons, originally born as gorgeous maidens. In fact, Medusa was so beautiful that Poseidon was crazy about her, but his love was unrequited. Angered by her lack of interest, Poseidon turned Medusa into a monster with live snakes as hair, and a deathly gaze, whereby whoever dared to look into her eyes was turned to stone.
Mm.
Medusa's death is made both realistic and symbolic in this mask-like rendering by Backlund, who has painted the woman with a wide-eyed stare that is simultaneously abhorrent and mesmerizing, giving us a glimpse into the abyss of her inner grief. Her frozen, terrified expression ironically recalls the plight of her victims, who were
Mm-hmm.
rendered immobile by being turned to stone.
If you remember the Clash of the Titans, there's a scene with Medusa.
Perseus was a handsome warrior who was tricked into going on a mission to kill Medusa, whose
Yes,
stare would turn any onlooker to stone. Wary of her fatal powers, he obtained a mirrored shield, which he used to look at the Medusa without being killed by her stony gaze.
that's exactly what happened in the movie.
He managed to get close enough to cut off her head, which he then used as a weapon to turn his enemies to stone, before giving it to the goddess Athena to place on her shield.
Oh.
In about 1617, Rubens painted his remarkable work, The Head of Medusa. This shows her head when Perseus had placed it on a bed of seaweed, after he had rescued Andromeda. Rubens shows an exuberant mass of snakes, even a lizard and a scorpion, more of which appear to be forming in the blood exuding from her neck.
Mm-hmm.
In Greek mythology, a chimera is a fire-breathing creature, usually with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a snake. Departing from tradition, this chimera is part woman, part eagle, its fearful claws scratching at the artist's bare chest, as he lies captive under it.
Oh. Okay.
In this artwork, Bellerophon is mounted on the winged horse Pegasus, and charges through the air, driving his spear into the shoulder of the chimera. The fire-breathing beast with a lion's head, a snake's head for its tail and a goat's head protruding from its back, reels from the force of Bellerophon's blow. A skull and bones appear below the rocky outcrop in the foreground.
Mm.
The chimera had been terrorizing the cities of Caria and Lycia, and at first, even Bellerophon could not harm the monster, despite the help of Pegasus. He then had the cunning idea of mounting a large block of lead on his spear, and lodging it inside the chimera's mouth. The beast's fire breath melted the lead, and blocked its throat, causing it to suffocate.
Ah, clever.
Bellerophon returned victorious, but as his fame grew, so did his arrogance. Bellerophon felt that because of his victory over the chimera, he deserved to fly to Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. But this angered Zeus, who sent a fly to sting Pegasus, causing Bellerophon to fall back to earth.
Mm. Let's see what we find up here. Hmm.
Who would be a mermaid fair, singing alone, combing her hair? So wrote Alfred Lord Tennyson in his poem entitled The Mermaid from 1830. A mermaid is a mythical sea-dwelling creature, often described as having the head and body of a woman and a fish's tail below the waist. Stories of mermaids have existed for thousands of years and span cultures across the world, from coastal settlements in Ireland to the landlocked Karoo Desert in South Africa. Look closely at the Armada portrait of Queen Elizabeth I, and you may notice a mermaid carved into the chair of state. The mermaid may represent Elizabeth's ability to provide calm seas to her English fleet, or summon tempestuous storms for her Spanish rivals, much like a mermaid. Whatever the case, the depiction is a potent image of a lone queen exerting her power, as her subjects fought at sea.
see what's over here.
This painting tells the story of a mermaid who lures the fisherman down to his death, in revenge for killing of her fish. Layton depicts the unforgiving and deathly embrace brilliantly, with the pressure and weight of the bodies implying the sensual yet deathly embrace of female sexuality.
Hmm.
The fisherman, clothed in a red loincloth and skullcap, lies on a red mantle set against the rocks. His ankles are already submerged in water and the body all set to slide down into the sea. His head is slumped to one side, and the arms stretched out, as if in a crucifix. The dark, rough sea, depicted brilliantly in the background, adds to the aura of the painting.
Hmm.
In early Greek mythology, sirens were half women, half bird creatures, often confused with mermaids. However, while mermaids are morally ambiguous creatures, sirens were said to be always malicious and dangerous, attracting sailors with their captivating voices, luring them towards the hazardous rocks. Here we see a boat full of muscly sailors apparently terrified by three nude girls, who as they climb aboard in an act of assertive sexuality, change from mermaids into women. The picture contains many contrasts: the sea and the air, the masculine and the feminine, the dark and the light, hard and soft. These contrasts are enhanced by the colors used by Draper, with the sailors being dark and weather-beaten. The sirens are pale and untouched by the sun, like an English Edwardian lady. King Minos' wife slept with a bull and gave birth to a minotaur, a creature half man, half bull. King Minos was embarrassed, but did not want to kill the minotaur, so he hid the monster in a labyrinth. Later, King Minos' son was killed in Athens by the same bull that had impregnated his wife. In revenge, he demanded that the king of Athens send 7 men and women every year to the Minotaur, to avenge the death of his son. In the third year, Theseus, son of the king of Athens, decided to be one of the 7 young men that would go to Crete, planning to kill the Minotaur, and end the human sacrifices. Theseus promised his father that he would put up white sails on his return voyage, to show that he was coming back alive. But if Theseus was unsuccessful, the boat would return with black sails.
Hmm.
In order to escape the labyrinth, he used a thread given to him by Ariadne in order to lay a trail behind him, so that he could find his way out again. Theseus managed to kill the Minotaur, and with Ariadne's thread, he managed to retrace his way out. Theseus sailed back to Athens but was so happy, he forgot to change the color of the sails. His father saw the black sails from afar and presumed his son was dead, so jumped off the cliff to his demise.
Oh, God, no. Oh, that's sad.
In Greek mythology, the Minotaur was a half-man half-bull, that could only be appeased by human sacrifices. Every year, 7 youths and 7 virgins were shipped from mainland Athens to the island of Crete to be devoured by the monster. In Watts's painting, the Minotaur leans out across the sea from a high parapet, in anticipation of the ship's arrival. The yellow sunlight of the breaking dawn glints off the shoulder of the beast, accentuating his powerful body, and catching the hairs of the tail that flicks out behind him. On the parapet, the Minotaur's large hoof-like fist has crushed a small bird, a recognized symbol of the innocence and purity of youth.
Hmm. Hmm.
The goddess Thetis sent her son Achilles to the centaur Chiron, so that he could receive his education and learn how to fight, because he was destined to be a great warrior. But upon learning that her son was prophesied to die in the war against the Trojans, Thetis tried to deceive fate, and remove the sleeping Achilles from Chiron, fleeing in a shell to the protection of King Lycomedes, on the island of Skyros. Centaurs are often associated with uncontrolled passion, lust and sensuality, traits that Botticelli uses in this painting to illustrate the submission of passion, and the dominance of reason. It depicts a centaur with a bow and arrow, and a female figure holding a very elaborate halberd. She is clutching the centaur's hair, and he is submissive to her. The female character is thought to represent Minerva, also known as Athena, who was the goddess of wisdom. This is reinforced by the olive branches on her clothing. The beautiful cloth of her clinging dress is decorated with a three-ring emblem, confirming that the painting was made for the Medici family. The scene is sparse, relatively empty, and very dark, telling us that Botticelli wants us to focus almost exclusively on the two figures. Centaurs are part human, part horse, and have stamped their hoofprints on some of the earliest Greek tales, first appearing in Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, which date back to the 8th century BC. On display at the Louvre in Paris, the story depicted in this painting is a well-known story from Greek mythology. The centaur is Chiron, a brave and noble centaur who taught many children of Greek nobles. One of the students sent to train under him was the boy Achilles, who he taught to wrestle, sword fight, and shoot a bow. Centaurs are part human, part horse, and have stamped their hoofprints on some of the earliest Greek tales, first appearing in Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, which date back to the 8th century BC.
Okay, let's see. Oh, got that lovely horse. Unicorn. I'm sorry, unicorn. Mm-hmm.
In Greek mythology, it is common for a sea monster to be referred to as Cetus, and the most famous embodiment of Cetus is the monster sent by Poseidon to devour Andromeda. The Greek hero Perseus, traveling home after slaying Medusa, spotted the princess Andromeda chained to a rock, having been placed there as a sacrifice in order to appease the sea monster and the gods. Perseus rescued Andromeda and won her hand in marriage. This painting depicts a particular version of the ancient myth popularized in 16th century Italy, in which Perseus arrives astride Pegasus carrying the severed Medusa's head in his hand. Celebrating the themes of love and heroism, Cesare dramatically portrays the princess Andromeda imprisoned by chains in a threatening landscape, about to be rescued by Perseus. In contrast to Andromeda's stillness, the fantastic setting is animated by Perseus's flying steed and the roar of the grotesque Cetus.
Mm.
The Midgard serpent, known as Jormungandr, is found in Norse mythology and is so large that it can wrap itself around the full length of the world and grasp its tail between its teeth. The Vikings took much inspiration from the tale of the Midgard serpent, carving dragon heads onto the front of their longboats known as dragon ships, in order to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. This painting depicts one of the most popular myths in Norse mythology, Thor's fishing trip. Thor and the giant Hymir had gone out to fish, when Thor caught something huge, and began to reel it in. Hymir knew that it was the Midgard serpent, but if it was caught, it would trigger Ragnarok, the end of the world. Thor reached for his hammer to land a fatal blow. But quick as a wink, Hymir cut the fishing line and the serpent fell back to the ocean floor, leaving
Hmm.
behind waves so huge that the little boat almost capsized. The nude and muscular Thor stands in Hymir's boat, with the Jormungandr on his fishhook. In the top left corner, the god Odin appears as an old man.
Hmm.
Merton de Vos has made an effort to show that the unicorn was not just a horse's body with a horn, but a special creature with a unique tail and feet. Contrary to other artists, de Vos captures the look of a creature that is not all sweetness and light, but rather a wild beast with a killer attitude.
Mhm.
The hooves are not dainty and beautiful, but heavy and powerful. It has a wild look in its eyes and a defiant stance. One of the most logical answers to the question of the existence of unicorns comes from the rhinoceros. Indeed, the explorer Marco Polo claims to have encountered a unicorn during his travels, but his brutish account of the beast, and the single black horn that protruded from its head, was more characteristic of a rhino than a magical unicorn.
Hmm.
A unicorn is a legendary creature thought to possess magical abilities. Though now known to be nothing more than a myth, ancient cultures wrote of it as a real animal. In fact, it was included in many natural history books of the time.
Mhm.
People saw the unicorn as the incarnation of purity and grace. Some also believed that the horn had the power to cure sickness and be an antidote for poison.
Oh, wow.
Here, a unicorn falls asleep on the lap of the Virgin Mary, in Domenico's The Virgin and the Unicorn, painted in 1605, which hangs in the Palazzo Farnese in Rome. In Christian thought, the unicorn represents the incarnation of Christ, a
Oh.
symbol of purity and grace that could be captured only by a virgin. In this painting, the unicorn is not merely an attribute of the Virgin, but in the tradition of this allegory of chastity, the unicorn seeks refuge in her lap.
Mm.
Domenico emphasizes the shyness of these two sensitive creatures, who have moved out of the center of the picture towards the edge of the woods,
Mhm.
conveying an expression of quiet and gentle introversion. The legend of the fairy is almost as old as civilization itself. But beyond being a magical creature who resembles a human, defining fairies is almost impossible, and they seem to come in all colors, sizes, and temperaments. The artist Henry Fuseli was intrigued by Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, due to its exploration of the realms of the supernatural. In this painting, Fuseli illustrates a moment from Act 4 Scene 1, in which Oberon, in order to punish her for her pride, casts a spell on Queen Titania, as a result of which she falls in love with Bottom, whose head has been transformed into that of an ass.
Wow.
Titania then calls on her fairies, who are wearing contemporary dress, to attend to Bottom. Peas Blossom scratches the ass's head. Mustard Seed perches on his hand, and Cobweb kills a bee and brings him the honey bag.
Hmm.
This picture is executed on a minute scale and in exquisite detail, and Dad worked on it for a period of between 6 and 9 years while he was in Bethlehem Hospital, having been sent there after killing his father and experiencing mental illness.
Oh.
The scene shows a number of different characters, but with the exception of Shakespeare's Oberon and Titania, who appear in the top half of the picture. The figures are drawn entirely from the artist's imagination. The main focus of the painting is the fairy feller himself, who raises his axe, in readiness to split a large chestnut, which will be used to construct a new carriage for the fairy queen Mab. In the center of the picture, a white-bearded patriarch raises his right hand, commanding the woodsman not to strike a blow until the signal is given. Meanwhile, the rest of the fairy band looks on in anticipation, anxious to see whether the woodsman will succeed in splitting the nut with one stroke. The figures range from tiny gnats and centaurs, driving Queen Mabs in her old carriage, to a large dragonfly playing a trumpet.
Hmm.
John Anster Christian Fitzgerald was a Victorian-era painter, nicknamed Fairy Fitzgerald, for his preferred genre. However, many of his fairy paintings are dark and contain images of ghouls, demons, and references to drug use. Earlier depictions of fairies resemble what we may today call an elf or even a troll. They all looked human, but they ranged from supernaturally beautiful to hideously deformed. Some of them had traits like pointed ears, webbed fingers, missing noses, or blue skin. It wasn't until the Romantic period, when fairies took the stage in plays and operas, that ugly fairies fell out of fashion and were replaced by gorgeous creatures, whose connection to nature was made obvious by their flowery clothing and woodland companions. Conveniently, these new, beautiful fairies were human-sized and prone to falling in love with mortals.
Quite interesting. I think I have seen. Yeah. I have seen all in the gallery. I have shown you. Let me see something here. Oh, David and Goliath.
This portrayal of David's victory over Goliath is somewhat disturbing, with a composition dominated by horizontal and vertical lines. David, beautiful and in the prime of youth, wears bright red, standing out vividly against the blues and grays of the background, and we see the fatal slingshot tucked in his tunic. He wields a sword above his head, so large that it does not fit in the frame. His young face is innocent, yet determined. Goliath is at least twice as large as his opponent, and again, does not fit in the frame. He wears the shiny luxurious armor of a mercenary, his face in shadow, and his unkempt beard and hair indicating that this is a savage.
Caravaggio.
David and Goliath is a painting by the Italian Baroque master Caravaggio. It was painted in about 1599, and is held in the Museo del Prado, in Madrid. Caravaggio also produced two later similar paintings on the same theme, one of which is shown here, to your right. It shows the biblical David as a young boy, fastening the head of the giant Goliath by the hair. The light catches on David's leg, arm and flank, on the massive shoulders from which Goliath's head has been severed, and on the head itself, but everything else is dark. Even David's face is almost invisible in the shadows. A wound on Goliath's forehead shows where he has been felled by the stone from David's sling. The overwhelming impression is of some action intensely personal and private, no triumph, no armies, no victory. Caravaggio originally showed Goliath's face fixed in wild-eyed open-mouthed terror, tongue rolling, eyeballs swiveled to the edges of the sockets. In the finished painting this melodrama has been banished, and the drama is transferred from Goliath to the quietly efficient David, his face almost hidden, intent on his work with his hands in his enemy's hair, kneeling almost casually on the man's torso. Some of the most popular and enduring stories involve an underdog who overcomes great obstacles and secures victory against the odds. Arguably the most famous of such stories is the unlikely triumph of David, the young Israelite shepherd, against the battle-hardened Philistine war machine, the 9'9" Goliath. David wears no armor and carries only a slingshot, with which he fires a rock at the giant's forehead and slays him, before beheading him with his own sword. Caravaggio captures the drama effectively, by having the head dangling from David's hand and dripping blood. The sword in David's hand carries an abbreviated inscription, thought to mean humility kills pride.
So true.
David is perturbed, his expression mingling sadness and compassion. The decision to depict him as pensive rather than jubilant creates an unusual psychological bond between him and Goliath. Homer's Odyssey tells how Odysseus and his men wandered into the cave of Polyphemus, the one-eyed giant. After watching two of their companions be eaten, the men fear the only way out of this cave is death. However, Odysseus strikes a plan to blind the Cyclops with an olive branch. Then, so that the blinded giant could not feel for them as they left, they tied themselves to some sheep and made their way back to their ship. This artwork clearly shows the contrast between the size of Odysseus and Polyphemus. There is also a contrast between the clothing on the humans compared to the small strip of clothing on the Cyclops, which gives the warriors an air of civility compared to the giant. The painting also employs many textures to make it feel more active. The clothes of the men are rippled much like the body of Polyphemus, and the sheep's fleeces are painted in great detail.
Mhm.
A cyclops is a giant monster with a single eye in the middle of its forehead, and one famous cyclops from Greek lore was called Polyphemus. This painting depicts a scene from the Odyssey, where the blinded Polyphemus starts to gather boulders, to toss at the ships of Odysseus, who blinded his single eye. The Cyclops is perched in a diagonal to the canvas, with a bleak gray horizon behind, as the ships quickly sail out to sea, their sails full of wind. A Cyclops is a giant monster
Oh,
with a single eye in the middle of its forehead, and
yeah.
one famous Cyclops from Greek lore was called Polyphemus.
Hmm. Mm. Bigfoot.
In 1958, a bulldozer operator in Humboldt County, California, called Jerry Crew, discovered a set of large human-like footprints sunk deep within the mud in the Six Rivers National Forest. Upon informing his co-workers, many claimed to have seen similar tracks on previous job sites, as well as telling of odd incidents such as a heavy oil drum having been moved without explanation.
Yeah, but it's not a crystal clear, the image or the picture. It's fuzzy.
The loggers soon began utilizing the term Bigfoot to describe the mysterious culprit, who had apparently left the prints and moved their equipment, causing a sense of paranoia among the workers. The most well-known video of an alleged Bigfoot, the
Hmm.
Patterson-Gimlin film, was recorded on October 20, 1967, by Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin in an area called Bluff Creek, in Northern California. The 59.5-second-long video has become an iconic piece of Bigfoot lore, and continues to be a highly scrutinized, analyzed, and debated subject.
I don't believe in that. Let's check this out because this is another.
The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie, is a creature in Scottish folklore that is
Hmm.
said to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands.
No,
It is often described as large, long-necked, and with one or more humps protruding from the water.
I don't believe in that.
Some say that the story is based on legends of the Kelpie, a horse-like creature invented to keep children away from the deep waters of the lochs. This is reportedly the first photo ever taken of the creature's head and neck, published in the Daily Mail on the 21st of April 1934, and for 60 years, the photo was considered evidence of the monster's existence.
Hmm.
However, skeptics dismissed it as driftwood, an elephant, an otter or a bird, and a full analysis of the photograph indicated that the object was actually small, about 60 to 90 centimeters long.
Yeah, I'm skeptical as well.
The hoax was finally revealed in a book published
See?
in 1999, which explained that the object seen was actually a toy submarine. The model sank in the loch, and is presumably somewhere still there in the water.
Okay, my friends, so this concludes a Greek mythology tour on the multiverse. And later on, I will return to multiverse and check out other things that I can share with all of you. That's all for now. Ciao.